In the last episode I released on ancient Egypt, we covered the early pharaohs of the New Kingdom. This episode will explore Hatshepsut, the female pharaoh. We will look at how she rose to power and ruled ancient Egypt. She was the 5th pharaoh of the 18th dynasty, and by this time Egypt was a powerful empire. Her reign lasted from about 1473 to 1418 BC, during the period we refer to as the New Kingdom. To understand Hatshepsut's rise to power, we need to go back to her origins, as well as explain the rules of succession in ancient Egypt. Hatshepsut's father was Thutmose I. He was considered to be a great pharaoh, mainly because he was a good military leader. He had become pharaoh entirely on merit, handpicked by his predecessor Amenhotep I, who was unable to have children of his own. In ancient Egypt, the pharaoh had a harem, and the most senior female within the harem was the great wife, the queen of Egypt. The pharaoh also had other wives, who were minor queens. As well as this, he also took a number of concubines, which was also an official position within the royal household. These harems acted like a kind of pecking order for the succession. The pharaoh's most senior son within the harem claimed the throne by marrying the most senior female of breeding age within the royal family, excluding his own mother, of course. As a result of this, pharaohs tend to end up marrying their stepsisters or even sisters. As Amenhotep I had no sons of his own, he had chosen his successor from outside the royal line, Thutmose I, who had to marry into it. Hatshepsut's father therefore married Ahmose Nefertari, the great wife and the sister of Ahmose I. She was at this time the most senior female of breeding age within the royal family. These were not marriages based on love or mutual attraction, but purely political affairs to ensure the succession remained within the royal family. Hatshepsut was the daughter of Thutmose I and his great wife Ahmose Nefertari. She was the most senior princess within the harem, and therefore the most senior female of breeding age within the royal family. The most senior male heir within the harem was born from a minor wife, so in order for him to rule and become pharaoh, he had to marry Hatshepsut, his stepsister. Hatshepsut became the great wife of Thutmose II, making her the most powerful female in the kingdom. The reign of Thutmose II is generally regarded as unremarkable, and his marriage to Queen Hatshepsut produced just one daughter. Therefore, before his death, Thutmose II declared his successor from one of his minor wives, Thutmose III. However, when Thutmose II died, Thutmose III was still just a small boy, too young to rule. Because of this, Hatshepsut became regent. This meant that she would run the kingdom until the young pharaoh came of age. There was nothing unusual about this. Great wives had been doing this for centuries, and during the 18th dynasty, the need to do it had become more frequent. When Ahmose came to the throne as a small boy, his mother Ahotep and his grandmother Tisheri filled this role. And when Amenhotep I became pharaoh, again as a small boy, his mother Ahmose Nefertari did the same. However, in both these cases, they were the biological mothers of the pharaoh. Hatshepsut, on the other hand, was the stepmother of Thutmose III, and so it can be argued that she did not have the same vested interest as a biological mother would have. And yet, as she had been the great wife, the position was hers by the rules of succession. However, about 6 years into her regency, Hatshepsut took steps to take the throne and become pharaoh. She did this by enacting a policy that had not been used since the Middle Kingdom, the co-regency. It was first enacted by Amenhotep I way back at the beginning of Dynasty 12. The co-regency was where the existing pharaoh would declare his successor pharaoh while he was still alive. Essentially, Egypt would have 2 pharaohs at the same time, a senior pharaoh and a junior pharaoh. Amenhotep came to the throne after the civil wars when things were less stable. He used the policy to ensure the succession and prevent any possible coups after his death. The policy had continued to be a unique feature throughout Dynasty 12, but had since gone out of use. Hatshepsut would now use the policy not to ensure the succession, but to delay it, so that she could usurp the throne for herself. However, this was not how the rules of succession were supposed to work, nor the co-regency. So, in order to pull it off, she must have gained enough support during her time as regent from within the royal court. At this point, it's probably worth mentioning that Hatshepsut was not the first female pharaoh in Egyptian history. The first female pharaoh reigned during the Middle Kingdom. Her name was Sobekneferu, and her rule marked the end of Dynasty 12. However, it does seem to be the case that her succession was the result of a sheer lack of male heirs within the royal family at that time. As well as this, her reign was a short one, lasting just a mere 4 years. Anyway, back to Hatshepsut. In order to legitimize her rule, she embarked on an extensive propaganda campaign to rewrite history. First, she claimed that her reign began with the death of her father, Thutmose I, and in doing so, attempted to erase the reign of her husband, Thutmose II, as if it never existed at all, which I guess would mean that Thutmose III would become Thutmose II, even though he had already been known as the third for about 6 years at this time. And this little scribble is for all those that have OCD. And second, she would go on to rewrite her family tree. She claimed that her father, Thutmose I, was not her father at all, and that the god Amun was her real daddy. Amun at this time was the most powerful deity in the Egyptian pantheon. Hatshepsut created a myth where Amun had intimate relations with her mother, and in doing so created the myth of her divine birth, which of course gave her the divine right to rule. As well as this, Hatshepsut ordered that all images of her were recarved to look masculine. She even began to wear the male regalia of the pharaoh, which included the false beard. One of the most interesting aspects about Hatshepsut's rule was the rise of one of her top ministers, Senenmut. He was a commoner. However, Hatshepsut made him the most influential minister in all of Egypt at that time. Senenmut's rise to power began with his role as the tutor of Hatshepsut's daughter. It was from that position that Hatshepsut seems to have taken a shine to him. As a result, he gained many other important titles, one of which included the overseer of the audience chamber. This meant that anyone who wanted to speak to Hatshepsut had to go through him first. He was also the steward of the Queen's estates, which gave him considerable economic influence. As well as this, he was the overseer of all the king's works, which gave him overall control of the building projects Hatshepsut commissioned. Senenmut was by far the most influential minister during his lifetime. It has long been believed that Senenmut was indeed Hatshepsut's lover. It was certainly believed at the time. Graffiti has been found showing Hatshepsut and Senenmut in what can best be described as sexual relations. As well as this, Senenmut never married and had no children. This may have been the price for his success. He disappears from history around about the time Hatshepsut became pharaoh. One of the most well-known events during Hatshepsut's reign, and one she seems to be very proud of, was the expedition to the kingdom of Punt. We are not exactly sure where Punt is, but we do know that Hatshepsut's explorers sailed down the Red Sea. Once there, they met the Queen of Punt. Egyptian hieroglyphs show the queen as a very fat lady, and the houses there were built on stilts with thatched roofing. Hatshepsut's travellers brought back many exotic goods, which were dedicated to the god Amun. One thing pharaohs did to demonstrate the success of their reign was to commission grand construction projects, and Hatshepsut was no exception. She commissioned 4 great obelisks. Made from pink granite, they were transported down the Nile from Aswan and erected at Karnak. They were massive, the largest of which was 97 feet tall and weighing in at 343 tons. A single stone standing perfectly straight with nothing but its own weight for support. Her most impressive construction project, however, was her mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahari. This was a unique and remarkable temple, and included shrines to Amun, Anubis, Hathor and Ra. Inside, carved in stone, she recorded key events of her life, real or imagined, such as the story of her divine birth and the expedition to Punt. Also inscribed there are images of military campaigns. Now, there has been some debate as to whether Hatshepsut would have taken part in a military expedition or not. So, Here is my opinion on this question, and it is just that, so feel free to disagree. On one hand, Hatshepsut growing up as a princess would not have gained the military experience needed to lead a campaign. That being said, as long as she had the good sense to take the advice of her generals and avoid the front lines, her lack of experience would have mattered little. The real issue that Hatshepsut faced was that she had usurped the throne and that the rightful heir still held the rank of Pharaoh due to the co-regency. Therefore, any lengthy campaign out of Egypt would have left her throne at risk of any potential coups in the name of the rightful heir. Her best option would have been a quick smash and grab operation just over the border against some poorly defended town or another. As tunnel tombs were the burial format for pharaohs at this time, she had one cut out for herself. In the Valley of the Kings, Hatshepsut died around 1458 BC, and finally the throne was left to her stepson Thutmose III. This seems to have been an assertive attempt to erase her from history. However, because this did not happen for some time after she passed away, it has been interpreted that this was not done out of spite, but to hide the fact that the rules of succession had been broken. The fear was that bending them would lead to future coups and destabilise the kingdom. But despite all this, enough clues remain to allow Egyptologists to rediscover Hatshepsut, her reign and achievements, so that we can tell her story today. Thank you for watching. And don't forget to like, share, subscribe and comment. Have a great day.